Leeds, Leeds, Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to Working Hours, a show about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. Working Hours wants to record 1,000 loiners over the course of this, the most important decade in the history of the human species, and ask them what they do all day and hear how they feel about it. My name is Simon, and this is all my fault. What did you want to be when you grew up?
That's a great question. I wanted to be an actress, as we said then, an actor. I went to either wanting to work in a street shop and wanting to work in a bar, which of course I ended up doing, which is what you do when you just try and act. But yeah, from at the age of 7, I saw the film Grease back in 1978 and decided I wanted to be Rizzo. And that fed my desire to want to act. So yeah, I was that kid at school on the stage singing, and I eventually, I'm from South Leeds, I'm from Beeston, and actors didn't come from Beeston. So all my teachers were very disparaging, but fortunately I had parents that felt differently and were very, very supportive. So ultimately I went to college. I never did uni, never did drama school in the end, but went to college in Wakefield and did the Performing Arts diploma, which took me on a whole other journey.
You're listening to Series 3, Episode 18, and to my guest, Faye Dawson. This is another Zoom interview recorded on the 11th of May, 2022. Hello, loves. Faye Dawson doesn't really know who she is anymore. She says she never wanted to define herself by her work, but now wonders if she's done just that. From wanting to be an actor at the age of 7, then training, jobbing, and falling out with the idea at 25, she fell into PR age 30 and really found her dream job. For over 20 years, she's worked in PR in entertainment, leisure, theatre, and hospitality. 4 years and 11 months of that time were spent running her one-woman comms consultancy, Faye Dawson PR, FDPR, from her spare bedroom in West Leeds. That was until April of this year when she wrapped up with her last client. Sitting with burnout, a loss of passion, and a need for solace, Faye picked up a suitably mundane data inputting job and added a part-time administration role with the wonderful Leeds-based charity Zarach. Both are work-from-home jobs, which suits Faye at the moment as she gets to be with her black Labrador Buddy and Stanley-the-Cat. It also means she can operate flexible hours. Faye describes herself as an avid storyteller and a wannabe writer. Faye writes for Projecting Grief, an online gallery that explores the use of creativity to help grief, and she is in a pool of media spokespeople for the Miscarriage Association, focusing on early miscarriage. You can find out more about Projecting Grief at projectinggrief.com or follow them on Instagram at projecting_grief. Go to miscarriageassociation.org.uk to find out more about what they do or to make a donation. And you should also check out Zarach, and you can make a donation to them as well at zarach.org. It's a bit of work to listen to this one, I have to be honest, but it's worth it, I think. Zoom didn't get the best sound from Faye's audio, and Descript's studio sound processing could only do so much. You get used to it after a bit anyway. Leeds, don't forget to like, share, follow, and subscribe to this podcast. And remember, Leeds, I'm doing all I can to bring this to you. So if you do like anything about it, please follow and promote Working Hours on and off social wherever you can, whenever you remember to. Please give money to Working Hours, and please give me any feedback, questions, or comments that you may have. Feedback and support and encouragement and acknowledgement. Help it get bigger and better and more confident. Email workinghourspod@western-studios.com or use one of my social channels to get in touch. Links for all of those channels will be at the end of this episode. Any support that any listener anywhere can give me will help me to keep Working Hours free for anyone in Leeds or elsewhere to find these interviews and listen to them. More importantly, it helps me to do this. The more you do, the more the podcast can do. Please share Working Hours and engage any way you can. And please get in touch to advertise your Leeds business, campaign, or whatever on this show. If you like the show, please support me in making it bigger and better however you can. Get keen. Do a fundraiser for me. I can't be asked. It's hard enough summoning the energy to do this. Okay, enough fundraising. Now, please enjoy this totally free and totally ad-free, as far as I know, episode of Working Hours with Faye Dawson. What are you doing now then?
And now, well, that's a $1 zillion question, Simon, because up until April this year, i.e. last month, I had worked in PR for some 21 years. The last almost 5 years being running my own one-woman communications consultancy. And in the end of March, I wrapped up I decided to pack in early this year. I probably realised that a long time before then, but wasn't really listening. And packed in, and now picked up a little data input job that I can do from home that's suitably mundane, and applied for a job as administrator with the Leeds charity Zarach, who we can talk about in a bit, who are fantastic. And currently I'm working on a very part-time basis, again from home with them, and trying to make up some kind of salary by data inputting. That's not happening. But yes, that's where I am right now.
Okay. So sort of where to start with all of that? I mean, so how did you go from wanting to be an actress to being in PR to not wanting to be in PR anymore?
Oh, there's a few years to cover that. Like 43 years. So yeah, acted explained where that came from, and I did all sorts during that period as a kid and as an adult. But obviously, it's a tricky industry to be in anyway, as anybody will tell you, even the most successful. And you do spend a lot of time doing the stuff, which I loved about work, restaurants, cleaning, all that. I always liked that. I did get acting work. My very favourite job ever was museum. I had a job in museum theatre down at Tetley Brewery Wharf in Leeds, which is no more, but although you'll know where the brewery headquarters is, Tetley still there. That was fantastic. Went off to Mallorca to work as an entertainer in a hotel for a season, which was great. And just before, and then so in the mid-90s, a good friend of mine got a role on Coronation Street, which was huge. It still is huge, obviously, but for us, they were like in our early 20s, and it was just massive. And she's in Leeds, and we just were like going out, doing what we'd always done, like going for a pint or going shopping, and people would literally throw themselves like that. I mean, it was ridiculous. To me, it was utterly ridiculous. I was physically shoved out of the way, it was bonkers. And so I remember thinking, I'm not sure that's for me, really. I rather like tootling down the street and going into the shops. You know what I mean? I like living in Leeds, thanks. I really don't want to be anywhere else. Anyway, go off to work in York as an entertainer and get this kind of much smaller, if you're not wishing to compare being an entertainer in Mallorca with Coronation Street. But you belong to those people for that 2-week holiday, you know? So you're on the stage doing your Spice Girls and entertaining everybody and having a blast. And on your one day off, we were sitting really long hours, 6 days a week, obviously, you were on. If you didn't get off that part of the island, you were just not left alone.
Yeah.
It's lovely in a zillion ways. It's also, because I wear my early 20s, I'd hate it now. We're in the mid-20s. It's also really invasive, you having a little sunbathe. And everybody glaring over you. It was a fantastic experience. But I remember thinking, I don't like this invasion of privacy at all. I love performing. I love entertaining people. I love making people happy when we did. But that other side of it, I really struggled with. And I'm not saying I was ever going to get famous, but I just thought, that's a massive part of the job, and I don't really want to do it anymore. So I was back to 25 then. I woke up and just thought, don't know. So the only thing at that time that I knew was that I wanted to work in the arts. Very much changed. So I just kind of tried to stay in theatre and got jobs in box office and on bars and that kind of thing. It's a very common thing to do. My advice is, if you want to work in theatre, don't go work on something horrid. It's driving you insane. But I stayed in that, and then I ended up moving to Wolverhampton because I met a guy in Mallorca who was from way down south. He ended up, it's a long story. You can go if you like. Ended up moving to Wolverhampton, work at Wolverhampton Grand Theatre box office, and meet the marketing team and think, like, this is great. These people are creating the stuff that promotes theatre. That's like all my dreams. You know, they're writing words to promote theatre, and they're using photography and using all this other stuff. And this is way before social media and websites were pretty new. And I thought, I like that idea. Like, yeah, fancy that. And just befriended. I used to go up to do the post and kind of hang out with marketing and made friends with them all. And ultimately, the marketing manager moved to a place. There was a new science museum opening in Birmingham. He got head of comms there. They were looking for a marketing assistant. I went along for the job, got the job. There was definitely a bit of who you know. Got the job as marketing assistant, having done no. I mean, I can see how I'd used marketing in the past, but I've no official marketing. Yeah. And within 6 months, they'd made me the PR, which I didn't really know what that was, you know, but they'd made me this press and PR officer, which of course was just so right for me then. It was, I loved it. It made complete sense. I'd always been interested in media. I liked people. I'd always been interested in writing and telling stories, you know, connecting people, putting stuff together. So this job was like my absolute dream job, and that was 2001. And I went from the Science Museum and the IMAX to Birmingham NEC and NIA, working on gigs and exhibitions, and then I split up with my partner, which is why I'd gone there. Decided all I wanted to do was come back to Leeds. I'd always really miss Leeds. And then met who's now my current husband. Like, there's going to be another. I mean, you never know. There could be many more. Never say never. Who is now? That's a man. That's a man who's now my husband. Moved in, gave up my job to come back to Leeds for no job. Started cleaning. Da-da-da-da. He worked at Leeds Grand Theatre in the technical department. The marketing team were looking for somebody to help out because somebody got on long-term sick. I go there to fill this gap, end up being PR manager. Sometime later, long story short, ended up being PR manager for Leeds Grand Theatre and Writers Music Hall, which again was an absolute blast. I loved it. And I was there for 6 years, which is the longest I've been in any one job. Still. And I just got to a point after 6 years, for me personally, the shows were coming in and I just thought, here we go again. You know, it felt very samey. And I didn't want to feel like that. I didn't feel like that working in PR. I'm doing this, so you have to be so passionate now. And I was feeling a bit like, I've done this. I've been here. And I had a really good reputation in Leeds with media and other connections, and just thought, I'm going to try and go this alone. So in May 2017, it kind of went like that. My husband built me a desk in the spare room. I logged on to HMRC and decided to go freelance. And then,
was that intimidating at all? Was that sort of, I mean, were you worried about doing your own regs and tax and, everything for yourself?
I probably wasn't worried enough. Let's put it that way. I've always been a bit, just a bit, let's have a go at this. Not really saying like, what if and does it, and I don't know if that served me well or not, and obviously it's got its pros and cons, and in fact, I just said to my best friend last night, why have I lived my life upside down and back to front? And she went, because you're wonderful, which of course she would say that, she's my best friend. But, it does bring its problems, but I just also think I didn't want to be still in that other place. So you have to take some risks, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh dear, I don't know. I have to take risks from time to time. I think there's just, I shouldn't say you, yeah, just a bit of a. I wasn't worried enough probably, and it was really tough, and it was great fun and a massive experience, and I met so many fabulous people, and I learned so much about people, about life, about creativity, about myself. But it was, for me personally, it became very hard work, and it took me a long time, I think, to realise I was trying to do what a whole team would be doing.
Yeah.
That's not bigging myself up. That's quite the opposite.
No, but that's working for yourself as well, isn't it? It's
definitely a lot of it, because you are your own accountant, your own cleaner, your own HR, your own CEO, your own marketing and PR, you're all those things. Your own set, your own, put yourself out there. Yeah, your PR really. Dog walker, chief dog walker, he's here next.
Yeah.
So there is that, but also yes, as far as my offer goes, I was definitely, and I'm sure there are other people that
you're trying to give the same sort of level as you would when you were being paid by an organization that took care of your tax, your pensions, your put it in your bank, got you the work.
Yes, exactly.
So you could give it 110%, but when you're doing it for yourself, it's like, well, I'm trying to, but I've got to waste all this time on this business that I've started.
Exactly. All that. And also, there are other PR and comms companies where they'll pay someone to do the social media, a client's social media, and they'll pay someone to do the client's media, traditional media, and they'll pay someone to do this, that, and the other. And I was doing it all. And it became, and I haven't formulated all my thoughts into words yet. I don't even know if I formulated my thoughts at all. It's so recent, really. And I probably need to think a lot more about the process. But fundamentally, I got to a point, really, it started last year, if not the year before, but definitely in the last year. I wasn't really listening to it. I was just battling on. And then it got to a point this year where I just thought, I actually cannot do this anymore. It was like total, can't do it, walking away. Which is really stupid. If I'd listened to myself a year ago, I might have planned for that. I might have put some money away, Simon. Who knows? I've given myself a holiday and some time to think. But no, it's true Faye style. I go, and go off and take even more risk. So yeah, people never change, and that's probably a good thing.
Well, I mean, it doesn't sound like it's done you too bad so far.
Well, but no, not. And I'm in a transition period at the moment, so it's, again, keep using the word stressful on that. I think we use it a little. Sometimes we use it too easily, sometimes we don't use it enough.
Yeah.
But it feels a bit one word fits all, and that's not really how I feel. But the transition period that I'm in now, that I've probably been in since March, really, when I'm really started wrapping up FDPR, is trying to build a salary which, sorry to be vulgar, is needed. It's not that I want money, it's that I need for it to exist, as we all do.
Yeah.
And I also am privileged in many ways. But just, having worked with Zarach for the last month, even having a bed now is privileged, which is who knew. So yeah, I'm going through a lot of transition, which is obviously brings all its own stresses of worry and concern and where to go. But like you said, I've done it before. Surely I can do it again. And will I be sitting here again at 70 going, oh, well, I'm just sitting to the rest.
Well, you hope not, don't you? It's like, because you're kind of like, well, okay, fine, I can do this. I've done this kind of thing before, but I don't necessarily want to do it again and again.
Yeah. What do we do instead? What do I do? I don't know. Wouldn't it be lovely to just have someone pay you to be you?
Yeah, well, I've a question on that. So, so what we'll do, if it's okay with you, right. How am I going to do this? So I want to kind of talk around things, but I want to start with COVID and lockdown, because I think that'll kind of lead me through to the other things. So, I mean, part of this is to make people sort of remember back and have that distinction. And obviously this is something that started around about the same time as I was starting this, but it's also to see, you know, what it has changed, what COVID has changed about work. So if you take us back through what you can remember of going into lockdown, and then sort of, if you can take us through, like, were you working more, working less? Were you furloughed? Like how did that affect work for you? And how does it affect your thinking about work now?
It was a really, I mean, it's a bit like where we when, you know, the plays,
sure,
the
yeah.
towers, and you like it. She was John Lennon with something I'm really at age of myself. But, or I'm showing my age rather than we were, I totally know where we were listening to the radio, and the Prime Minister came on and announced lockdown. So there were several things going on. We were in Northumberland, literally pulling up at the house. We were going to stay in with the dog for the week, and he came on the radio, which we knew was going to have something, which is why we tuned in, and said, yeah, blah, blah. Now, he said, don't go to theatres, and don't go, and something else about hospitality. So all my clients were theatre and hospitality.
Mm.
My husband works in theatre. All my family and a lot of friends are in theatre or hospitality.
Mm.
You know, my stepchildren are in bars and restaurants where, anyway, pretty much the whole of my family is in that industry that they were telling people not to go to, but not at that time, not shutting down. So there was no support. And we all went, as you can imagine, full on alarmed. What the actual fuck are we going to, what's going on, and what we're going to, we're so unclear. I went into a massive panic, which everybody did. And I remember soon after feeling a little bit foolish, thinking you should have just sat back a little bit. Now, what ultimately happened is I didn't lose any clients, for which I'm eternally grateful. But obviously I was working with some great people. I can't remember who exactly was working with time. I can remember the two main ones, which was fantastic theatre company in Bradford called Mind the Gap, which is a learning disability professional theatre company, who were just great and wonderful. And they would be, obviously they're in a massively vulnerable situation. They work with people with disabilities, but they were determined to keep the connection going, because that was even more important for them at that time. To just drop everything would have been disastrous and monumentally. So their CEO and their team are fantastic. They all could say, and of course, along comes Zoom that nobody's ever heard of, or I've never heard of at this point. There were other video calls, obviously, but this Zoom thing comes along, and everyone starts connecting to that. So Mind the Gap continued operating via Zoom. And I was, as I have always said throughout my whole PR and communications career, when the chips are down, you must keep communicating. If there's one thing, and this is not even a bias thing to try and keep yourself in work, if there's one thing you must actually do is keep communicating with people, tell them you're still there. You know, I've worked with venues that shut down, didn't communicate anything to you that time, then reopened and expected everybody to be there. That is just not how we operate as human beings. They're going to remember you, no one cares. We've moved on, you know? So trying to get that back is a lot of effort and work. Whereas if you can maintain it when the shit's hitting the fan, when that comes to an end, as it will do, however that end looks, you're already a step ahead. You're already there. You've done your communicating. And I was really lucky in that most of my clients got that. The ones that could afford to as well, because don't forget, people lost, shows stopped, tours were stopped, money was gone. So like, I am speaking for an established company that was already in place with the venue 30 years, They were, and we eventually got recovery funds and all that. And so they continued, they also, I must stress at this point, whether it stays in or not, they made a commitment to supporting their freelancers, which they really didn't have to do. And that was, you know, that there were they work with a lot of freelancers. So we were looked after, we were still working, but also there was a commitment to keep us in work, which is great. And then the other one was rolling social events, hospitality that would do. They ran Leeds Rum Festival, which I did the PR for at Leeds Con Exchange, and they were about to do Leeds Gin Picnic, which was to be at Kirk's Blabby. Obviously didn't happen. because we weren't even allowed to group outdoors at that time. So that got pulled. But what they did immediately, which is what a lot of entrepreneurs do, was just totally pivoted and took it online. And so they were delivering. So they were doing all sorts of, it was called the sip-along spirits mainly, and then they moved to wine ultimately, but as well. But say rum 1 week, gin the next fortnight, and we've already talked about twice. We've mentioned gin in half an hour. Whiskey, and they get and they deliver to your house. You pay X amount of money, you get this fantastic package, and then you join in on Zoom. These total professionals from the breweries or the distilleries talking to you about it, and you do these little tasting sessions. Everybody has a merry old time. and they changed that, and of course, so they kept me on board to promote and sell us. And obviously, this is a Leeds company that suddenly found itself delivering all over the country and available for the country, which was quite incredible, really. And we discovered new audiences of actually, regardless of COVID and also because of COVID and lockdown, they don't want to necessarily venture into Leeds City Centre for Leeds Rum Festival, as many do. But people have financial commitments or financial challenges, care issues or care challenges, commitment, a whole host of reasons. Time. Whole host of reasons people actually would rather be in the living room at this kind of party, sipping the rum, learning a bit about. People would put on whole meals once they could have family round, friends round. When I wasn't minute what at that point. People would cook and just join in a room. Some people you couldn't see, they were just there listening and all that. It was really quite an interesting process. So I guess back to the original question, for me, that didn't change other than not going into meetings, not being able to see family in the way. Work-wise, really, not a lot changed, but I watched everybody else change, and it was fascinating. So I'd been working at home for 3 years by then. Suddenly everybody's working at home, or the majority of people working at home, and having complete... I would put it this way, I was like, I wasn't going mad at all. It's really it wasn't just me. Working from home is really hard. So yeah, it was a really interesting process to see people. Forgive me, I wasn't celebrating people struggling, but it was kind of reassuring for me that it is a struggle.
Yeah.
Not going into the office with the same people at 9 o'clock or whatever your system is a struggle.
Yeah.
Still don't totally understand why, but it's hard. My husband worked from home for the first 2 weeks before he had to go into personal contractors. He couldn't stand it. But what was fascinating was I'd been saying for 3 years that this house is freezing. Day 2, this house is freezing. That's it. Yeah, it was that was all very interesting, and I loved watching people suddenly throw themselves into that fitness thing in the morning and threw themselves into projects, and I was like, no, I'm staying right back here. Thank you very much. And it was and predictably soon that ended, and then there was a whole different struggle. I think for people, there were so many ebbs and flows, weren't there? It was quite fascinating, and taught us all so much.
Well, yeah, it was one of those weird experiences of loads of things happened, but nothing happened. There was long periods of nothing at all happening, and then something would happen. Because the discourse would change a lot of, because there were periods where it's like, oh, well, it's only just going to be for a few weeks. And then other people are like, no, it's going to be forever. We're forever going to be locked in here. This is going to change work forever. And then other people are like, oh, well, it might be a few months. And no, this is what's really happening. And it's like, so every opinion that you could possibly have was out there, and you looked at them all because you had the time to. And there's nothing else happening. So
I know. I really envied that because I didn't get that experience of time where, I was like, I remember saying to my husband, if I hear one more person complaining about being fucking furloughed, I'm going to scream. I would give anything to be furloughed right now. I'd give anything to be paid to not work. But whilst appreciating that all those people that were in that situation, that was really challenging. You know, I was like, please someone let me have Sailor, and everyone else was like, but we're all in such different situations, and that is the other thing, right from the, maybe not right at the start, but very early on. I remember saying to a lot of people, but my husband, people need to stop judging other people because you do not know what other people's lives are. You know, we have no idea. We just stop it. There's no point going around being angry. All we can do is manage ourselves. We know how we need to exist. We know what we can and can't do, and we need to go away and get on with it. But you don't know other people. Yes, of course, always some people that are just going to break the rules because they don't care. But fundamentally, there is so much between that and rules. There are so many complexities and nuances of how people live. You know, I know lots of talks about, but you know, when in London, in South London, when all those different acts park and everybody kicked off, I was like, do you know South London? Do you know Peckham? Because I used to go to Elephant and Castle a lot, and believe me, it's flat, it's multi-story tower block. Who in the right mind doesn't want to go to the park on a sunny day when they're holed up in a tower block with no garden and probably kids, probably more than one child, living with nothing, and everyone goes, get back in, it's fine. Maybe you get back, you realise it's busy, and you go back. But let's not judge. You don't know what it's like to live like that.
Well, I mean, you know, from a PR perspective, you know, these things are a setup anyway. It's like they start from the outrage and then they build the story from there. Because you can take a photo and say, oh, the park's full of people. All you've done is taken an angle where you've got 12 people in a line.
Yeah.
Or you go, everyone on Twitter's mad about this. Everyone on Twitter's mad about everything. Whatever it is. Yeah, you can find 10 people to say, oh, look, everyone's mad about this. It's like, yeah, well, of course they are. You can find that story anytime.
You can always find something to suit your own narrative. We all can. And now, particularly with social media, and we can all be very guilty of it. But yes, there are some areas where it shouldn't be. They did it in Leeds, and they did a big queue and made out it was a Primark. And I wasn't there, can't possibly pass another argument on, but that queue to me looked like it was a Trinity, and it just happened that Primark was in the background, right? And let's say it was the Primark. There's an awful lot of snobbery going on around that. It's like, people buy the kids stuff from there because they've got bloody money, you know? And these kids have gone 6 months without clothes. Have you had a child at that age? Do you know how quick they grow? That the pajamas suddenly don't fit them overnight, you know? And not everybody has cars. So let's just quit with the, you know, yes, not people do have cars, but it's quite frightening the amount of people that don't have or don't want to use them for fear of, you know, the Casper society thing is really worrying, I think. Yeah, so COVID was bonkers, but what it did do was made me realise that I wasn't totally going crazy with working at home, that actually I didn't have to go out to meetings. But it is a, I don't really like this expression, but I'm just going to use it anyway. It is a time saver if I discover something like Zoom when suddenly is okay with it as a thing. It is helpful in many ways that you don't have to go 40 minutes commute to get to your meeting, 40 minutes back. Yeah, so that when you work for yourself, that's an hour and a half, and it's not really, it's not really chargeable time. So, you know, that's a whole hour and a half.
But that's it. And there's the waiting time, you know, like even if you're in the car, you know, you get stuck in traffic, you have to find your way to the place and your way back. And, you know, there's always distractions. There's always things that take up your time. Whereas the Zoom meeting, providing everyone's there, you know, you get on with it, you do it, it's done. But you lose all of that, like the interpersonal stuff. But on a business of just like, let's do business, it's great, surely.
I agree totally. And then as you said, the human connection thing is important, and it's very important for lots of people for a zillion different reasons. And getting out of the house is important for a zillion different reasons. And then everybody has their own feelings of, you know, my husband hated working from home. He can't do a lot of his job from home, but he can do some of it. And he has no desire to do that at all. And I have no desire for him to either. So, you know, but it suits other people in his workplace. So I think the challenge is now, as we are coming out of it, inverted commas, that people have found what really suits them, and there's a bit of challenge of making that work for everybody, because it isn't working for everybody. But we shall see. I applied for a job. They had a full-on policy. I think most people do now. A full-on working from home policy. So you could read that, work out what it is, the hybrid working, and that has definitely come as a direct result of the pandemic and lockdown. And that, I think that's interesting, because being more flexible is surely a good thing, fundamentally.
Yeah, I mean, especially for certain skill, unless it's like a manual dexterity skill, what the hell do you need to travel around the world for? Like, if it's like a knowledge-based skill, or something that you can produce in a document and you can take people through documents for, why do you need to be in the same space as other people for it? Like, you can design something collaboratively. It can be sent around the world. You can teach remotely. There's so much that you can do, and so much freedom comes from that. But then you have to rearrange how you navigate the space. I suppose that's the big difficulty, is kind of.
I think the teaching thing you just touched on is from what I understand of it, and from a distance. So my stepdaughter did her third year through lockdown, so she didn't get to go into university. She didn't get to be with her fellow students. She sat in her bedroom paying £9,000 for the privilege of very little connection. She missed her year of work experience. That's not what they call it anymore, but going
placement,
out. Thank you. And struggled with it quite a lot. I also know on the other side, tutors and teachers, school teachers, university lecturers, who have just found it absolute nightmare. I don't think I heard a positive story about trying to teach a group of people via a video, via Teams or Zoom, and that stuff's really important. There's a lot of change to have. It's great that it's been looked at, but I think and you can't please everybody all the time, but we do need to listen to everybody and understand what people need and how best it can work. If you've got a job that needs doing, you want it done to its best, don't you? As best as it can be.
Well, this is. I mean, there's a lot there, and the thing is with these conversations about work and stuff, it's like the conversations are only for so many people. It's like there are only a certain number of people can actually make any decisions about their work at all. For like huge swathes of the workforce, it's just turn up on time. You're not on time. That's like, I'm going to give you a hard time for that. We're going to try and take as much money off as we can off you. Like, you just get no choice. You just turn up and try not to get shouted at and try not to get crushed by machinery.
Absolutely. No thanks. I was never good at being on time.
But then I do think there's a really good point in that, like, when you are doing something where you're working for yourself, you do have to work out things like, how do I like to work? When am I most effective? When can I get the best out of myself? But surely that should be a question that's kind of posed for everybody, really.
Within the constraints.
Yeah. So you've said a lot of things so far that I've found interesting. I want to kind of look at your working from home experience. So the pre-COVID, like when you started working from home, I get the impression that you wouldn't have been able to do that if your role wasn't so, like, didn't need to be involved with the client so much. So if you were more paperwork involved and less people involved, I don't know if you would have liked that as much. So I'm guessing from what you've said that being able to have that client interaction, and because your job is kind of quite, you need to have that client interaction on quite a regular basis and quite a lot of contact, that you're getting the kind of social aspects of your job served there. Is that fair?
Yes, pre-COVID, definitely. A lot of being with people and managing people, inverted commas, looking after. But yeah, just being there, which was a good part of the job I've loved for a long time. briefing photographers, working with media, dealing with film crews, TV crews, working with radio, dealing with journalists, dealing with the client, prepping the client. You've got to be with those people to do that. Of course, that changed slightly, but that's a really nice part of the job, being on the ground, managing all that and making it happen. It's exciting. There's a lot of work goes into it to get to that point. So that's the bit where everybody goes, facing out of the TV crew. The work that's gone into that is like, I don't think I'll ever be able to explain that properly. We can. Sometimes it's a really simple email and you drop bloody lucky.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's not.
Yeah.
It's a lot of graft. And even if your email drops lucky, it's because you've done it right. There's a whole load of experience that's come into that. But anyway, yes, there was a lot of social aspects to PR, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And I guess that did stop. Because I couldn't do it. I hadn't really thought about that time enough. I had to go away and think about that. I can't decide whether I was already becoming a little bit, I keep saying reclusive. It's a bit of a joke we've got going, because I was always, as you can tell from my career history, out there. So if I worked on the bar, it was my stage. I wake up and the credits start rolling. Performing that will die. And actually, once I start working at home, that kind of stopped. So what I don't know is, was that going to happen anyway? Was that a very natural sense of, was it a good thing to stop doing that and sit back a little bit and be in my little spare room with the cat and then the dog who appeared later? I don't know. Who will ever know? I do know I need to connect with people a lot more than I have been. I've learned that, because otherwise I do this and just start talking. I think I haven't spoken to anyone for it. It's like some kind of therapy.
Yeah, you know what puppies feel like, don't you? After you sort of spend all day in the house on your own, and someone comes back in, and you're like, oh, and then I did this, and I did this, and I went over there. I know. What have you done? Like, oh God, let me sit down.
I haven't even got my clothes off. Yeah.
You run into the door to meet the person.
They don't know what I mean. Yeah, there's a bit of that. And also, like, again, pre-COVID, often just come home and just go, what the fuck are you wearing? So I'd been in PR, which was, for me, doesn't have to be like this. I forget PR. I've always enjoyed clothes. Yeah, really enjoyed clothes. Put together. My mum, my grandma, that's a female thing in our family. Always enjoyed clothes, fashion. I don't know whatever you want to call it. And then obviously, I didn't have to really go out. I just kind of throw on something that was comfy. You learn. Can I answer the door to Amazon in the, fine, I'll throw it on. It became so much less important than gone with this red lipstick and heels, hair done them. And then we got the dog, and life changer, totally. Standing in the garden and the peeing down rain, trying to talk to the guardian whilst picking up shit. You know what I mean? It was a whole different thing. So I found it really hard for a very long time. But all that, the shift to work from home, I've bonkers. And now I'm almost kind of frightened to go back into that environment, not this or
like a workplace, yeah.
Yeah. And I think probably need to try and establish a bit of both somehow. But that I'm still really trying to find my feet in how that's going to be. Well, maybe we should speak again in a year.
When you were saying about keeping messaging going, and also about working from home and sort of seeing people go through that kind of, let's call it an adjustment, the adjustments working from home. So I want to know, did you have your own space sort of initially, and then to kind of get your thoughts on, I mean, to a degree, a company is, I mean, it's not really something that exists. It exists through practice. It's people, a person or people coming together and doing the same thing over and over again till they get to the point where they have property and contracts and buildings and employees and, But it is ultimately just people getting up every day and saying, here's this phone number, I'm a company, I exist, and then goes from there in a degree. So yeah, so talk about, but I want to get your thoughts on that and your thoughts in relation to kind of starting up your own company and what that was in your head. How did you make it a company? Did you already start with clients and you just kind of cracked on doing the same thing, or was it something that you had to kind of actually construct in your head to make it exist in the real world?
That's a really good question. I do not remember what my thought process was at all, apart from this was good. Let's give it a go. And several people have asked my advice on how to set up, and I can't give them any because I don't have it. I literally had a laptop. My husband built me a desk. I logged onto HMRC as self-employed and thought, and on that first day, which was May the 2nd, I think, 2017, I travelled from my bedroom over to the spare room, which is now my office, sat down and thought, right, here we go then. Now, what had happened by that point is I was PR manager at Leeds-based theatre, from Writing Music Hall, and I handed in my notice there, plenty notice, but I didn't manage to get my successor in time for me leaving or a handover, because I continued working for them, but as a freelancer. I was really nervous about doing that first. As far as I was concerned, which is very me, I'd finished there.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to continue that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was an income that I needed.
Yeah.
I knew it really well. They knew me again, knew they'd just let me go away and get on with it, because that's what I'd always done anyway. And I thought that just bought me that bit of time to I'd been putting feelers out anyway. Everybody who I knew I was, going that way, going freelance. So I don't know how long that was, maybe 6 weeks. I continued doing PR for the ground and a handover for my successor. So that was good. And then during that time, I just picked stuff up. The funny thing is, when I left the Grand, I was like, I'm not leaving to do theatre. As far as I'm concerned, I've got the best regional theatre PR gig in the land. Grand was great. So I think quite quickly I got Phoenix Dance Theatre and Mind the Gap. Mind the Gap came to me initially for just one project, and then ultimately I ended up working with them for a couple of years, which is lovely. And then I'd get bits of a tour would be going around, and I did quite a lot of theatre. Ended up with a bit of hospitality. So I don't know what it was in my head. To go back to the question, genuinely don't know what I was thinking other than let's try it. I do remember thinking, well, you're not unemployable, are you? You can always go back to working in house. That's not close. You don't close those doors.
And you didn't burn the bridges. You were like, I'm never working for any of you a-holes again.
FDPR! No, I was told not to do that. And I loved most of them anyway, so that was all right. But yeah, don't burn bridges. Yes, I don't know. It was literally, let's give it a go. And it worked, it happened. I got work.
Well, it just sounded like, from what you've said so far, obviously I wasn't there, but it kind of just sounds like you needed to bring on staff, or you needed at least a PA or something to.
Yeah, maybe. You see, what I've always said, not that you can't change your mind. I'm a big believer in changing your mind, because that would be very dull if we all said the same forever. But I never wanted to manage people. That to me is the most unappealing thing on the planet. I love managing projects.
Yeah.
Like managing myself. Don't want to particularly be managed. So every management I had has always kind of understood that I need to be autonomous, really.
Yeah.
So I would get on with stuff. If it went wrong, I would take the flak. If it went well, I'd take the glory. That's how I operate. I'm very happy with that. I will take, if it's gone tits up, I will take the shit for that. So the thought of managing somebody else, no, it's still really unappealing to me. And lots of people say I'd be good at it, but I don't know. I certainly don't want to do all that HR stuff. Sit down and have, so how do you think it's got? I'm just very hand-mouth in the way that I get on with stuff. You know what I mean? Well, this is here, let's do it. And maybe that's how it went not that it went wrong, but maybe that's where I could have done it differently. It didn't go wrong because I was still getting clients. I was turning people away in the last 6 months, which when I thought, why are you turning this down? I can't afford it, and it's interesting, but my heart was just not in it. But so it didn't go wrong, but perhaps I could have done it differently, and perhaps having somebody on board or outsourcing in some way would have been better for me. And perhaps it's some kind of control freakery that wouldn't let me do that. You know, I don't know if I'm honest. Am I a control freak? I don't think I am. But when I look at some of my, refusals to do things, perhaps, refusal to let go of something, then perhaps I am.
Isn't some of that, I mean, I would guess from my perspective, I would think my fear there is that they're going to do it wrong, or they're going to do it in a way that will mess up things that I'm doing. And then I'd have to spend time going, no, do it this way, and or doing the work again. So it's kind of like, how is this saving me time? Was there any of that kind of?
All of that, but why do you think? Who am I to think that somebody's going to come along and forget? What kind of ego I've got to think that somebody's going to?
That's what I'm doing so great and so unique and different, and these are the best ways to do it.
I know that is not to be. I do know I have a particular way of working, so that an element of that is a fact. In like, I do write in a particular way, and I do communicate in a particular way, and I do have a particular tone of voice, and I would want to maintain that. But you have to give a bit of that over. You can't go around micromanaging people. You have to let people grow and develop, which is something I really believe in, yet couldn't quite relinquish that. And let's be fair, and I don't think I ever got to a point where I could afford to pay somebody else to do it. But that, in retrospect, probably needed looking at as well. Like how you split your time with clients. Well, if it, most people in my situation will be outsourcing stuff, as you said earlier, and therefore you pass that charge to the client. But I am not a business person. I was a simple town communications gal. I know my stuff. I think perhaps I could have done things differently, but I don't at the moment. I don't have any regrets.
I'm loath to start with it, but let's start with Brexit. So have you noticed any change from us leaving the EU from after Brexit to how you're working? Anything that's affected your work, either for the good or for the bad?
That is a really good question, because I've been so reclusive. Trying to think of how it affected clients. I know people who it has affected. Not for the better. Which people who work with contractors and goods and materials and drivers, all that we know really well. I really don't have an answer for that. I feel sure that it will have affected the arts in some way, touring, etc. But don't have an example of it. I only have examples of
people telling you examples.
Yes, exactly. Other people's stuff that doesn't directly affect me. So I know the touring element, because I've worked in live music and whatnot, and that took a little bit of a beating, but then COVID happened, so cheap. Who knew what was coming? So no, I don't have a personal or work professional example for that. I have plenty of people I know, and none of it is for the better, but can't give you anything more than that, I'm afraid.
Yeah. I mean, other people have sort of said because because COVID was kind of happening at the same time. It's kind of like, well, we don't know how to pull apart what's caused what here, and
I think the blend was powerful, wasn't it?
In terms of your work, can you address or adapt or mitigate climate change in your role? And is that something that you're active about, or is it something that you'd like to do, or is it something that you can't even think about? Or
No, it's something I think about an awful lot, not necessarily from a work thing, though, rather than, how I live my life and what can change. From a work point of view, obviously COVID kind of, in many ways, assisted the positives of that, in that people weren't travelling. People were walking and cycling, and
the air quality was better.
I mean, noticeably, wasn't it? It was shocking. We live on a main road here, a main A road, very busy. Not meant to be fast, but it is. And it was definitely for 2 weeks. It crept up quite quickly. It was like,
so quiet,
yeah. And I would say to my husband, "This is it. This is what's going to happen. We're going to be forced to change. People start walking. One day, when social distancing was really like whatever we were, we had to pause at our gate to let people pass before we could get out. It was just busy. And that is not like, and we're really lucky. We live in the green belt, so it's 5 minutes walk and we can walk in fields, and woods. Even though we're in a really high built up residential area, 5 minutes off and you're in loveliness. So we have the lane that we call, which is just all farmland. It was like Brigitte. I was like, do you think this is it? People can start walking with the families. I really believed it happened, and Alan was like, no. He's the realist. I was a real optimistic that this was going to change the planet. And I think we know who's right now. But so from a work point of view, it's like, well, I'm not driving, which is not a bad thing, and that, but there's a bus stop on the end of my street. I can't get everywhere on bus and train, but there are elements of it. So from a travel point of view, I didn't do that much. I always kind of recycled my paper. If I was printing stuff out and it didn't get used, I always turned it over. I had a pretty bus, I'd turn it over and use it again for scrap. But I think just kind of keep using it as much as possible and try not to print as much as possible. And so I'm aware of it. But from a work thing, there wasn't that much that I could change. However, in the last year, I did that with a client, got me on board to join the sale. Sale, yeah. So I took part in that, which full on alarming. I'd already had a few years ago decided we were going to really cut down on plastic. And Alan came home and there was bread bags hanging on the washing line and all crumbly plastic. And I collected all this soft plastic. I'm totally obsessive. Collected all this soft plastic. Went to the house, you open the cupboard, and there's just plastic falling out. To do the eco bricks, which I didn't believe in, incidentally. I don't believe in them at all, because that does not stop the problem of making all this crap. And it shouldn't start with the consumer. It needs to start much higher up than a old say in West Leeds, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you. But I thought I'd try and do my bit, and I'd make these eco bricks, because maybe, here's the thing, I could have a little crafting thing going on. I'm full of ideas, whatever happened. So I collected all this plastic, washed it and dried it, and I was like, what are you doing? Going mad. And of course, ultimately, I had to throw it away, which was even worse.
Yeah, because then you got a conscious sort of thing of like, how much do I throw away?
Exactly. How much am I buying? Tried to shop differently, honestly. And the one thing I realised a few years ago, the one thing I found out during that time was there are 2 things you need to be able to be a lot more greener, and that is money and time. And I didn't have either. And most of us don't have either. So shopping differently is more expensive, either because the goods are more expensive because they are, and I don't mind paying a bit more for stuff when it's good, but getting to places like, I don't know, let's go use Leeds Market, they don't use goods packaging. Let's go use Whitley Farm, which is at Pudsey, not far from me. They don't use packaging. But actually doing that in your everyday life, whilst running a business and doing whatever else you've got going on in your personal life, takes time and money. And I had to stop. The only thing that came out of that time was that I stopped using kitchen roll because
well, that's something.
I've been doing this, been doing it for years. I tore up a load of old towels that were really getting raggedy and needed it, we needed to replace them. We used them for a long. Things get very holy in this house before they get to anywhere. So I just tore up a load of towels, which we now call cloth, and we use them for everything. Just throw them straight in the wash, wipe something up in the wash, wipe the dog's drool up into the pot, mop something up in the wash. And that's been really interesting because there's things of napkins, here's a rag. So there was that which we still do. And recently, since December, so our house is freezing, it's freeze blocks, there's no cavity wall, all that. It is, I mean, you go outside, this is not a joke, you go outside and feel the difference in the temperature. It goes up when you go outside. Honestly. So I used to always have the heating on. And then, of course, everything happened that's happening. And I thought, you ain't going to be able to do this anymore. You cannot. One, it's environmentally unsound, but it was freezing. But two, can't afford it. Can't afford to do that anymore. So I've been fixing these cheap things. These are fleece things from Wilkie's that I think was 10 ages ago. Warm as anything. So for the last, since December, I've been sitting in, it's milder today. Although, confession, the winter, I was sitting in 3 of these, 5 pairs of socks, 3 hot water bottles, lift my feet off the floor because we've got floorboards and the cold air comes through there. And no heating at all. And whilst it's a little bit depressing, I have to look at that benefit side of, well, actually, this is no bad thing for the climate to just turn that off, So, yeah, I want to come home and instead of crazy outfits, I'm just like little Red Riding Hood's grandma. So it does that differently for work, but it took years. I wasn't doing it for a long time, let's be fair. I really only started doing it for money, which is not exactly the right reason, but the benefits that, I guess are there somewhere. But
so
am I there?
So progress is kind of grinding away, from 100 years ago, people sort of in drafty rooms, writing with their pens by candlelight, to you, in a drafty room, typing away on a keyboard. Covered in pieces.
Covered in blankets. I discovered that tea warms you up. Coffee doesn't. Tea warms you up. And that was my other one. Hot water bottles. It's utterly bonkers, isn't it? But it is. There's a direct link to Dickens because I bought candles as well.
Yeah.
Because I have candles around the fireplace sometimes, and you do notice the heat coming off them. Ridiculous, isn't it?
This sounds really desperate, doesn't it?
But it is, and how many? And now, kind of probably come to this. How many people are far more desperate than that? Where that isn't, I know. So because I knew I was going to be sitting here with you, and I wanted to be comfortable and not in a blanket, put the heating on for half an hour so it warms up a little bit. Because the thing I learned is it's hard to get warm when you're cold. Keeping warm once you're warm is much easier. So I put the heat on for half an hour because I knew I was talking to you, made sure it's off, got my hot water bottle and my tea ready, and got ready to rock. There are people now that can't even do that. They can't put the heating on for half an hour, and that's what I say when I say privileged, and it upsets me that that's fucking privileged. It's shocking. That should not be it. You should not feel privileged for putting on your heating. But anyway.
This is the thing as well with like getting people to talk about privilege, and it's like, but that's a weight sort of dragging us down because people are going to talk about more and more really basic things as if they're privileged because it's not like any standards are going up.
And that's what I mean. I mean, define privilege, but that's what I mean by it upsets me that I define putting the heating on for half an hour, having the fire on in the evening as a privilege.
It's like the Four Yorkshiremen sketch, isn't it? It's like, we had to get up half an hour before we went to sleep. And
and I used to be exactly against all that. So, like, there is a certain demographic, let's say, in Yorkshire that really like to hark on about, one, how it used to be, and two, like, I had to post them on Facebook and I knew who would respond with lots of, You're firing on. It's August. I was like, live in Yorkshire. August means nothing. The point is, if it's cold, it's got obviously feel differently back now because the aforementioned. I never felt like that. Like, if it's cold, I put my fire on.
Yeah.
Because it's not about the month.
Yeah.
Don't care what month it is.
Yeah,
Don't care about how cold it is. Yeah, exactly. Doesn't make any sense of it to me. I don't sit there freezing because of the month on the calendar that was made up by somebody. God knows how long ago. It's nature. It's cold. We live in the north of England. There we go. When it's warm, we won't have the fire on. But yeah, you can. I know quite a lot of them. They drive me insane, and I now I'm doing it, but for a whole very different reason. Privilege.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. Oh, sorry, that's my phone beeping. I cannot make this phone shut up.
Oh no!
Like every time I tell it, like it's on flight mode at the moment, but still a notification comes through to beep me for something.
What? Is it an iPhone?
No, it's an Oppo. It's I think it just wants attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my next question is on I'm going to do UBI first. So universal basic income. So this goes back to something that you were saying before. So it's essentially getting paid to do nothing, kind of. So if you had a universal basic income, if you were being given a basic amount each month that paid for, you to be able to live, would you still work? And if you would still work, would you still be doing the same work?
Definitely no to the second. But, well, not excluding Zarach. I keep forgetting that I've had this massive change now. So, let's go back and think about this. Interestingly, I have always been and I've only recently started questioning it. So I'm from a working class background. Family always worked. That definition of working class seems to change all the time. But my grandma worked till she was 82 and was forced to retire as a chambermaid in a hotel cleaner. We are very much always had what we used to call them. This is the language of that question, but I'm just going to use it for now. A good work ethic. I worked from the age of 14. Always had practice jobs, part-time jobs, holiday jobs at college, all that. Most of us have always enjoyed working because obviously the big jobs have that hated, but fundamentally always enjoyed working. No problem with going out to work whatsoever. I'm a grafter, all that, and that I'm starting to really dislike all those phrases that I've used all my life, but for probably back to reasons we've just been talking about. But I think it's been misconstrued in the last 6 years. But the last couple of years, personally for me, I found myself saying, you know what, happily not work. But I think it's a definition of work. So we need to work to earn money, but so assume I don't need to earn money, that all your basics covered. As long as I can get a bottle of wine.
I do that in basics. That's basic.
I'm mad after my own heart. In that case, no. That won't work at all. But then there is a definition, in this example, there is a definition of what work is in there, because I would still do stuff. I'd still want to do stuff. I would still want to be active in somewhere. The doing stuff for me, or what always comes to my head first, is I'd love to write. Just like, I like drawing. I never give myself the time to do it, and it's hugely therapeutic for me. Whether the finished product is crap or not, whether I'm pleased with it, the process is about the only thing after wine that makes me switch off. And I don't do enough of it. So I like to think I would embrace my creativity and do that. Right. So yes, that's not working, but who knows? I might sell some of that, or does that change the process? I suspect quite possibly. But also, I would want to, and this is what led me kind of to Zarach, I would want to do something for others. I'd want to give some time to volunteering in something I believed in, something that agreed with my ethics, politics, philosophies, whatever title you want to give that. So I would still definitely do stuff. I'd still want to get out of bed and do something. But also but not every day. I am really pro, and I can't do this at the moment, but when I can, I think it's really beneficial. If anybody comes to me and says, I feel really bad because I laid on the sofa all day yesterday, I am so pro that you just give yourself time to do that, to regroup, to rest, to refresh. It's so important, and I think many of us are not giving ourselves the time to do that. I only recently started giving up Saturday afternoons and sitting on here with my husband and watching something, and then I started getting right excited. It's like, what should we watch today? I had never done it. It's just not something I'd ever done.
Yeah.
You know, I've been cleaning. I mean, I could lounge in the garden if the weather's good. Don't get me wrong. That's a fairly easy one. But outside of that, yeah. So I think I would definitely still do stuff, and I would definitely give my time to something I believed in without that would be 100%. I'd do that. Not every day, I'm not going to lie. I'm not Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 either, probably, but definitely a good chunk of time that I felt was beneficial and was having some effect, some positive effect. So yeah, no, I don't know. What answer is that?
I mean, it sounds to me like a yes, like you would definitely be doing something. I think it's interesting that you went straight to no on, like, kind of sounds like you're kind of done with PR.
So when I kind of went public that I was giving it all up, lots of people came to me and suggested other communications that I could go work for, like the implications for me being I failed, but it wasn't that at all. It was I have had enough. However, there is still parts of communications that I really enjoy and that I still have a huge skill set from that, but I still want to employ in ways. So I will work, whatever I do, I will do with a PR and communications head because I just can't not. It's 20 odd years, I can't not do that. But what is a relief is that is no longer my focus. Trying to get that daily grind of trying to achieve stuff is no longer my focus. But for example, at Zarach, where I'm an administrator, we've already had conversations about potential communications and, you know, how to use stuff. I know it looks like it, and I hope it does come to fruition that a lot of my skills learned over the last 21 years will actually be used. And I'm happy for that. That's great because it's just a part of another job rather than waking up every morning and like going to sleep every night with that on you. It's just mad all the time. It just being part of something bigger and something more important is appealing. So I suspect it won't. Whilst I'm done with it at that level, I don't think I've always lived by never say never. I don't think I'm done with it on another level.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, I do, as we've established, do need to have an income, a better income than I've currently got. And that's a need, not a want. But so I think I'll probably go back to offering copywriting and that kind of stuff. I'm doing a bit of proofreading for something at the moment, but that element of it.
Yeah, it's so much easier just to get a job on a lot of levels and just be working for someone and get paid a wage, so long as the job's decent and the wage is decent.
Couldn't agree any more. And it's kind of fairly recent discovery is that it's like, which sounds really stupid after, you know, having worked for 36 years, but even just this morning, I was like, in the office, when you looked at the clock and it was 10 a.m., it felt awfully early. I look at the clock and it's 10 a.m. now, and I'm like, fuck. Got the really late. I am so lit, and I am so, you know, it's a whole different way of being. I've done some great, you know, by 10 o'clock, I'll have done things, but I feel like I've still got so much to do. So now, it's totally different from FDPR. I do X amount of hours for Zarach a week, and that breaks down into X Monday to Thursday and X on Friday. And that's where we've established. So I've got, by right, you've got these, let's say I do 2 hours for Zarach a day. So by right, you've got 6 hours left, haven't you? So that is not how it works at all. It just doesn't. And there's a host of reasons for this. Number one, the other work that I'm doing in those hours is paid by the hour. So you have to do that, and they can tell, right? So there's no kind of, so if you go into an office and you're paid salary, or you go to wherever and you're paid a salary, and this goes back to when people started working from home as well and were panicking about it. You just have, the chances are you could spend over a day, an hour gabbing to somebody that's not in total, not a full hour. Although don't get me wrong, I've done it. But rather 10 minutes while you're making a cuppa, another 10 minutes. Oh, morning, did you watch X Factor? You know, all that lovely stuff that comes with working in an office. There's been an hour there where you haven't actually worked. And good, quite right. I am not knocking that. That's exactly how it should be. Human interaction. You've got to have that conversation. You get to go in and work. Although I know there are jobs where that is exactly what you do. But you have the water cooler moments and you have that other stuff and that bedtime. When you are... and so when people start working on, one particular friend of mine said he was really struggling to fill his day. And I was like, but you don't do that in the office. You don't get into the office at 9, leave at 5 and have work out from an hour at lunchtime. One, you go out for a bag, whatever. You go make a tea, you do chat to so-and-so, you lean back in your chair, and then you talk about work. You talk about the stuff that you're doing, and that'll translate. You'll do all sorts of creativity in that hour's gap with somebody else that hasn't actually given you anything to show for particularly that is happening. You are creating stuff. You are making things happen. So, no, you don't do that. You don't go in and work 9 to 5 and come out. And that's really interesting. See, when you're working like this, so I am on an hourly rate and it is monitored. So I'm not going out to do that. I'm not just sitting there going, I have to be doing it. So the other stuff that you do when you might, total disclosure in an office is you might do your finance. You might quickly do your banking. You need to pay that bill today. I'll do that. 15 minutes. Right. Might do a bit of surfing on Amazon. I don't know. Who am I to judge? When you're working in a very different way, that does not you don't get that. So actually, your days are even busier because you have to do your finances in the evening. And this is, I'm not going, no, woe is me. I'm just saying this is a real, and this is for many, many, many people. Back to that kind of privilege thing. You don't just, apparently I used this example to a teacher the other day. They went, that's not how it works. And the school was like, I've got this. And I know what a moments in a school as a teacher. But, and so I appreciate every job's different. But, and then there are, there are other jobs like you go working all day. You go working, you do your job, you clock off and you come home. You've done your shift. You get, oh, it's great. That sounds great. There's so many different ways of being, and I'm just trying to find. So yesterday I realised I am going to have to start working at evenings and weekends. It's just how things are working. Again, this is a massive.
Is that just taking on more hours though? Is that to get more hours in, or is it that are you afraid of sort of doing those higher paying roles of like the pressure to go back into them, or?
Never had a high paying role.
Well, I suppose you've been in theatre, haven't you? So it's...
Yes. I've never had a high paying role, and that would look good. But yeah, the press that I've done, I'm not in the business of earning shitloads of money. Don't get me wrong. A little windfall right now would be really, really beneficial and welcome. And I would love to just take my foot off the gas for a little bit. But, I'm not a materialistic, I like nice things, but I'm not a materialistic person,
You're not like, give me all the Lamborghinis.
Absolutely not. I do like my wine. I don't need to go on holiday abroad every year, although I do like a holiday, like we just had a week in Northumberland, which is my first in 5 years where I didn't work. A breakaway, somewhere different to me, different change scenery. But I'm not but I do like to have money. I do see money as freedom in a way. Of being able to give you something. So I don't need don't need lots of it, but I do need some. I don't want that pressure anymore. I don't think. Never say never. Right now, it feels quite nice to be able to, for example, sit here and talk to you. I know I have to make that time up financially, but that's my choice. Sit here with the dog next to me snoring and knowing I can go sit out in the garden for a cup of tea if I want to. Do you know what I mean? But I have to, at the moment, I have to bring all that back around again. So I might work till it. I might do 7 hours work from between 6 and 9 tonight, or which is not ideal. That's not how I want to work, really. But for now, that's how it has to be. I don't know if I'm being unclear.
Where do you feel you are then right now? Are you kind of like, there isn't a burning passion of a thing that you really want to do? Is it just kind of like, do you feel like you've lost the thing that you wanted to do and you're kind of like, well, what now? Like,
I think one of the things that I've always wanted to do, and it's the reason I went freelance in 2017, is to write. I always said I'm going to write a bestseller that turned into an award-winning TV series or film. But to do that, there's one thing you have to do, and that's start writing. That's the thing. But several years ago, I started writing this little blog thing just for myself. I used to share it on Facebook with just my friends and family. I totally understand it's my own tunnel, my own echo chamber.
Yeah.
Everybody comes back and says how lovely it is and how wonderful you are. Of course it is, not my friends and family. But it was nice. It was I really enjoyed it, and I got some really proper good feedback on it as well, as in not just but some nice stuff of like, actually that bit really jarred with me. I really understood. And I thought, I've always wanted to, since I was a kid. My creative writing at school, that was the thing. I always got merit badges and certificates on house points and all that, and we loved it. So I've been weighing on about it forever, and here I am at 50, still not doing it. But so I started this little blog, and I thought, I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start writing about stuff, just life, just my life, just stuff that happens. That's what I'm going to do. I'll go freelance, and I'll get the time to do it. Of course you do. I had more time when I was working than just 5 to 9 to 5. One evening a week.
And more money.
And more money. More money. What more money? But other stresses, anyway, yeah, I left it from that. So I genuinely thought I'd create more time to write, and that genuinely didn't happen. That was 5 years ago, and not a word has come out of this pen or onto that keyboard, apart from obviously I wrote for my job. So I produced a lot of work that doesn't have my name on it. And it is purely constant. So I then thought, when I give it all up, I start writing. Here I am in this situation again where I'm having to work more hours than ever for a lot less money, and still not writing. But I think maybe I'm not. I don't believe in meant to be must of fact. But maybe that isn't the thing that I really want to do. Maybe if I really wanted to do it, I'd have already bloody done it. I don't know. Or maybe it's coming. Maybe I just need to make, these changes that I'm going through now, and this transition now that's tough is what's going to make it happen, where I just go, you know what? You need to do this at 9 o'clock at night. You need to give yourself an hour every night and just do that. The difference of looking at how I work and the changing in my lifestyle and how I operate shifted massively, even just this week, even just last night. So maybe this is it. I don't know. Maybe it isn't. Maybe I will go working all day, which is what I always say is my fallback. That's fine. I have no problem stacking shelves. What I have a problem with is who I work with. That's my only ever my concern.
Well, there's no problem with stacking shelves, but there is a problem with someone who's got no experience and who's like 30 years younger than you and doesn't know anything, and is like trying to tell you what to do, and you're just like, look, I turned up on time and I'm stacking shelves. Just leave me alone.
Leave me alone. Yeah, you see immediately. I'm like, no. It's just, I don't. I'm not relating this to Aldi, by the way. I need Aldi because I stop there. It's just sort of going into an environment where you might have to be just sitting with a load of racist sex. Do you know what I mean? All that stuff I just don't want to have to deal with on a daily basis. It's there, it exists, I manage it, I'll do my own thing. But I couldn't deal with that all the time. That frightens the life. And here I am again in my own little echo chamber. But I do think, I am connected. I do know what's going on out there.
Okay, so I'm going to go straight into this then. So the social media question. I mean, the question is to kind of look at how much social media is becoming like work media, and sort of like how much of your time it takes up, and how much of everybody's work, it kind of is seemingly encroaching on now. So social media for you, like, how much time do you have to spend on social media as part of your work, doing social media or looking at it? And do you feel that the amount of time that you invest, the amount of work time you invest in social media gives you benefit back in terms of the amount of, work that it brings?
No, you've landed on a good one here for me. From a communications point of view, from the FDPR point of view, from the PR point of view, social media is king. And what you get back for it, I have a real challenge with, because it's not all about numbers and likes and glances. For me, this is totally my opinion. There are lots of people who work in my industry that will disagree with me entirely, and that is also fine. For me, social media is not everything, but it's a massive part of any communication strategy and movement. What you write, how you write it, what time you write it, what you post, pictures, all that's huge. And so many people don't, in my opinion, don't do it right. We're way off mark. I can come in and help you with that. But it takes time. It takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. Also, you need to maintain connecting with people. If someone comes on your page and asks you a question, you don't answer it. That's like going into a shop and saying, "Can I have that, please?" and then walking away and not serving it. It is something that needs maintaining all the time. It's full on and it is tiring. And yeah, it just takes a lot of energy and skill as well, and thought and planning and all that other stuff. I think it's massive. I think the thing about what you get in, I think the return on investment, let's use that old one, I have personally had a struggle with, but I always have done. I just view it quite differently. So back in the day, when I was in Birmingham working at the NEC and the NIA, for example, print media was print and broadcast media, whatever. There was no social media then. 2008, I went on Facebook, and it was started on Facebook. It was brand new. So this is 2005 to 2008. There's no social media. We did a course in what was called EPR, electronic PR. Which is totally about websites. I mean, it's hilarious. Not that long ago, is it? 14, 15 years ago. I remember we first started sending press releases by email. The journalists horrified. And this is not like 20 years ago. So when I was using Birmingham, so broadcast and print media was everything. And so and there were newspapers everywhere. So each little place had its own newspaper, freezer that would come through the door, So in Birmingham, for example, it's West Midlands is a massive county. You get the Birmingham Post, Birmingham Evening Mail, then Leeds, and then each area outside of each sort of the villages would have its own just solihull dialect that would land in its doorstep. So the readership of the little ones in the village, quite naturally, is tiny because it serves there. Right? But the readership of those is
massive.
Massive. Everyone who's got that land will have a look at that over a cup of tea, or it's on the toilet floor, or, so you are going to pick it up and have a read it, because it's talking about what's happening on your doorstep, not in Leeds City Centre, your doorstep here, where you live, your community. And that really matters to most people, regardless of your politics and beliefs. So I'd be like, this has got to be the safe of 350. Like, no, we need that because it's 3 million and like I said, this is tiny as a number, but it's so powerful. You are speaking directly to that person, pretty much. You know who you're talking to, you know where they live, you know the demographic of income and all that stuff is really important then. So I feel the same. I transport that to social media as well. Just because someone hasn't liked it or particularly engaged with it, one doesn't mean they haven't seen it. Because they go like this, stop, what, and that isn't necessarily an engagement on a piece of that you can print out and show somebody. It's, but I've seen that. So newsletters, for example, I've gone off social media a bit, but it's the examples there. With newsletters, I think are massively important. And everybody looks at who's clicked on it, who's clicked on the links within the newsletter, how many's opened it, how many's bounced back. The one number I will look at on that is who's unsubscribed. That's the one that matters. If they've unsubscribed, they're genuinely not interested. If you're still subscribed, you're all right. So I'll get newsletters from Dunelm, right, which is a house, duvets and stuff.
Yeah.
Right, I can count on one hand how many times I've opened that in 5 years.
Yeah.
But every time that comes through, I go, ooh, Dunelm. Oh, yeah, Dunelm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It might take me 6 months to go to Dunelm to buy stuff. It's there, and that's job done. As far as I'm concerned, your job's done. You can't always transfer, this is very PR rather than marketing, but you can't always transfer sales. I can take the horse to water, but I can't make them drink. I can let people know what's going on. I can't make them buy the ticket or buy a pint, or you just, So for social media, it's a part of a bigger thing. It's a really important part of a bigger thing. However, if you can't do it in a decent way, I was going to say properly, but that's stupid, then probably don't do it at all, because there's nothing worse than doing something really badly. But always have a website. So I was very strong on that. I'm not everybody agrees with me, but I'm very funny about numbers and like viewing figures for TV. I think it's really dangerous, because this is where we stand to lose really important stuff, just because not everybody's watching it yet. And we all tune in for It's Got Talent, but we don't all tune in to David Attenborough. But it's important, or a little comedy thing on BBC Three, but it's important. There's creative behind that. There's people working and grafting and learning behind that, and it's reaching some people just in 10 million. Do you know what I mean? So the importance is really skewed, and I think and it's the same for funding in particular in the arts. They want numbers. Right? That doesn't tell the story. That is not telling you the story of who you've touched and who you've affected and what change you've brought and the importance of all that and who's working on it and what that does for the economy. And,
I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff in there, and in the marketing kind of side as well of like, because ultimately what you're looking for is like, you see a lot of this stuff of when you're starting things online and they're kind of, you're doing anything sort of creative and being a creator, creating content. They're always like, build a community and this, that, and the other. And it feels very cultish. It's like, build your own cult, and then you have to get these people, and then they kind of have to fit into this mold. And then you're building this kind of like ideal consumer. And then the ideal consumer is kind of someone that you want to sell the same thing to over and over again. Someone who's buying the same product over and over and over again. And then also other things with your product name on up to a certain amount that they will spend in their lifetime. But that is the actual genuine reality of what you're really trying to do as well. Like, we tell ourselves all these other things if we're trying to, my business is about this, or I'm trying to do this, or it's for this. But you're also just trying to get those people and get that money off them and get them to buy the same thing over and over again. So,
and actually, they're going to move on. We all move on. I will say to somebody, we thought about PR, we don't need PR, we're always sold out. And I was like, that's just foolish. That is really foolish. Because there is roughly going to come a time when you ain't selling out. And we're back to that shut venue, don't talk about it, then suddenly try and reopen it and scrub around, and communicating is so important. So when I started at the National Indoor Arena and National Exhibition Centre in Birmingham, Cliff Richard was everything. Like, we'll laugh. People camp, women camped out overnight to buy tickets for Cliff Richard. This is 20 years ago. It's not that long ago. So every year, that promoter wanted that to happen. And for the media, obviously the media loved that. It was of course it's a great story. It's fabulous. But we kept saying, his fans are getting older. They're not going to be around forever. And actually, they ain't going to camp out in the centre of Birmingham anymore. But that was an example of how things, it doesn't just stay the same. So you can't just communicate to these same people, because those same people are always going to be there. That just doesn't make sense. But you need to look after them when you've got them. Really need to look after them, care for them, show them some love, thank them, blah, blah, blah. But you've got to be ready for this next stuff coming along all the time, and that's where communications is so hugely important, and identifying, and this is where intergenerational working is massive, identifying those new people that are coming on, because I'm 50, and I don't know. I'm not, my stepdaughter's 22. She's just started a new job yesterday as a junior graphic designer. The world is her oyster. She knows what's coming next.
Yeah.
But in 30 years, it won't be her.
Yeah.
We've got learning and understanding and being able to move forward. And some stuff stays the same for a long time and great, and we need that too. But fundamentally, you've got to think about change. And I think, so when I was thinking of giving up FDPR, I heard a program on Radio 4 about all these successful TikTokers, and I was like, that's what I'll do. I'll get my stepdog to teach me. Downloaded the app, went on there, and I had no idea what I was doing. Yeah, I'll get Millie to teach me how to do TikTok, and I'll make my zillions or hundreds or tens out of that. And then about an hour later, like, that is just like the last thing I want to do. I don't want, I'm just, even if I knew what I don't even want to do that. What are you thinking? I have at least I just don't have that interest in you anymore. I don't have that fight, I love Facebook. Anyone will tell you, I love Facebook. I love Instagram. Twitter gets on my wick, but I do it a bit only because I have to work. But I love my personal Facebook and Instagram pages. And I'm very pro social media. But I'm also very aware it's how we use it. And that's the bit that needs addressing. We can't all go around going, social media's caused all these problems, because they were ever done. Those problems have always been there. Yes, highlighted. I'll give you that one. But we have to take some responsibility for that. We have to take responsibility for how we're using it, and who and what we're reading, and blocking people actually, and not following certain things that really depress the life out of you. How to look after yourself, use it for fun. I use it for fun. Use it for a bit of a laugh. Because we ain't going to change the world by Facebook, that's for sure. Yeah, and Twitter, I realised I've been following some subjects, whatever they call it on Twitter, themes, and then I've unfollowed them. Oh, the absolute joy that's not going on and seeing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, they're doing that. They're the algorithms basically doing the same thing as the marketing of just like show them the same story again and again and again and again until they go crazy.
Yeah, till you unsubscribe. Had enough. Don't want it anymore. It's a really thin line, isn't it, between looking after yourself, your mental health, your own things that you've got going on, because let's face it, everyone has got their own stuff going on, and still being connected and still understanding that that other stuff is happening outside of your kind of thing that is important and does need your attention. That balance is increasingly difficult to, I once put on Facebook something about, can't remember what it was. Was it food delivering for a food bank? They delivered for one of those food banks through that first lockdown. It was something like that. Anyways, that ilk. And my friend, very lovely and ethically, same as me, philosophically, politically, came on and said, we shouldn't have to do this. And I was like, nope, we absolutely shouldn't. But here we are. This is just it. Yeah, we shouldn't. But if we don't, and yes, I hear the stories of, for as long as we do that, that's not going to change. But I'm sorry, this is where we're at right now. And I think it does need to happen, and perhaps will bring on great change. Not in my lifetime, many years down the line, who knows? But we can't always sit back and do nothing. There are times when you have to say, that's it now.
This is probably a really good one to end with for you. So the question is, if you could change any three things about your work, what would you change? It can be anything at all. So what would be the three things that you would change about your work?
Yeah.
So you can use your current roles, the work you're doing now, or you can use your sort of previous work experience, or just an ideal, but however you want to take that question.
Yeah.
This is going to be a really hard one for you, isn't it?
Yeah. We're saying and nothing. Yeah, I don't know. Guess this is what I've been thinking a lot about, in that, should I go back out to work because of potentially becoming reclusive? Is that such a bad thing? Yeah, 3 things I would change. And oh my goodness, buddy, I need your help. Come on, buddy. No, he's not helping. I guess I kind of don't want to make it about money, but I'd like to not have to worry about making X amount in order to just be here.
Yeah.
And let's face it, for most of us, work is about that at the basic level. But then talking about doing stuff, volunteering if I didn't need to earn money is also really important. So, but I guess having the time to volunteer would be good. That's something I've thought, or giving myself time to volunteer would be good. I don't find my dream job, but I don't think it exists.
Maybe you need to create it.
I think I probably do. I have been thinking that, and that's where I am at the moment. Although the work I'm doing, so my work with Zarach, the charity, is great. That's fine. The other stuff that I'm doing to just try and have an income is, it's not creative, but or what's the word where you feel like, it is literally getting paid X amount an hour to do this, to do some processing. But at the same time, I am building my lifestyle. So when I went for the interview for Zarach, and it was always 12 hours a week, I was very honest that, I do need to earn salary, more than that. And they said, how are you going to do that? And I said, well, my idea is, I've got this little data input job. It's to get work that will just to build a salary by doing lots of little bits and pieces. And that to me feels really, for me personally, quite ideal. So how achievable that is at the moment, that feels like that's just not even a thing. But I'm so early on in that transition period that I don't know. But even the changes I've been through so far, I'm quite liking this idea of trying to be a bit more flexible around the 9-to-5 thing, but also having the life-work balance, which is really important. So the 3 things I would change is...
Shall I formulate from what you've said? I'm putting words in your mouth here, but so it sounds like less hours, more money. And then the third thing is something that I like.
Yeah, I think I have to say the less hours, more money is something I've been saying for a couple of years. I'm just scared of saying it because it sounds so awful.
Yep, you should want more money. That's
Yeah,
that's normal and healthy.
I would say, yeah. I don't want a Lamborghini, as we've established.
Well, yeah, you don't want all the money. You just want some of the money so you can do some of the things.
Yes, that's it. Thank you. Some money so I can do something.
I'm not too tired and I'm not too cold.
Yeah. Yes. Not too cold. I don't want to sit in 3 Wilkes places. I want to put the fire on. Less hours, more money, and by that doesn't mean all the money, or by any stretch, vast amounts of money to most people. I think it's because I always focus on people who are less fortunate than ourselves, that have even less. But just don't feel it's fair for me to then say things like that when there are people with even much less. But then I look at the other part back and think, no, they're many.
Well, that's it.
It's
there's a difference between Elon Musk and Jeffrey Kisses and and people who are earning a lot of money here, and But then there is, as someone said on one of the early sort of episodes, that there is enough, and there's enough for people to take, more than their fair share to a degree. But yeah, we need to share it a bit better?
It needs balancing out I really hugely agree with that. Lots of friends who work in hospitality said, and somebody said to me, "We just standard to work 80 hours a week." And I was like, "But it shouldn't be."
No.
But it is. And I was like, "No, it shouldn't be."
No.
Pay 2 people to do 40 hours each.
Yeah.
Which, that I'm sorry if that's really simplistic. It isn't. It shouldn't be normal to work 80 hours a week.
No. And it doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't do the individual any good. It doesn't do the business any good because their productivity falls off a cliff after so many hours. And,
Exactly.
If it doesn't fall off the cliff after hours this week, next week, that many months, it will after a couple of years when they're burnt out and they're no good to anyone anymore.
Exactly.
And then somebody has to pay the health costs because they've now got a chronic health condition.
Big picture stuff.
Exactly. It's this sort of, why UBI makes so much sense to me. It's like all of these, the vast profits and the big profits and things like that. It's like, well, they've made that by pushing the costs onto other people.
Yeah.
The costs onto the consumer, the costs onto society, the costs onto everybody else.
The energy companies at the moment is a classic example of that. And I find it so upsetting that is allowed to happen.
And it's just, they've decided it's their right. It's like, oh, we were closed for however many years. We've decided it's now our right to reclaim all of those profits. Like, take a loss.
Necessarily. Yeah.
Take a fucking loss.
Take a fucking loss. And they're not gonna. It would just be hard for them to take a loss.
No, because if you've paid the government any kind of money, you're now like, they have to turn the printing press on for you whenever you have any problems.
Yeah. It's just shockingly bad. I think, I'm very, I don't know. It's depressing. That's why I want to do the kind of volunteering stuff. It's not, no, we shouldn't have to, no, we shouldn't, no, Zarach shouldn't have to be raising money to get beds for children. It shouldn't, but this is where we're at. And so it needs support. And a zillion other charities need support and need volunteers and need money putting into it. And who knows, maybe that will start the revolution.
Thank you again to Faye for being my guest. Thanks again to all my guests, and thanks to you, Leeds, for being my subject. And of course, most of all, thanks to you, my dear listener. Come back next week to hear me talk to a PhD candidate. Stay tuned for a little bit extra Faye after this message. So it's £1 a month to support this show on either Ko-fi or Patreon. And if you do sign up, you will be helping me to keep making these. I can't keep making the podcast at a loss for 3 years, let alone 10 years. I mean, I am amazing, but I'm not that amazing. Give more if you can and or want to, please. If I get the support I need, there will be even more episodes coming out per month, guest sourcing and their permissions depending, of course. Your money will be helping the podcast with its overheads, as well as with reducing my own losses. And if I can get enough people listening and coming on this show, then I can have more opportunities to find even more sweet, generous, lovely people, such as those among you who have already acted to support this show in real life by talking about it, or virtually by listening, liking, sharing, rating, and or becoming a Patreon or giving a one-off donation. If you don't want to make a commitment to a subscription, that's cool. Please make a donation of any amount, either via the LibraPay button on my website, which is western-studios.com, or via my Ko-fi page. That's Ko-fi, ko-fe.com/working hours. If you have listened to 5 or more episodes, then please throw me a one-off donation of £3 or more via Ko-fi. You know it's the right thing to do. At the moment, the record donation to this pod is £100 from the US of A. And the best donation from Leeds is £3. Come on, Leeds, step up your game. I want you to chuck in because I can't do any more. Because I would rather not go down a web-based advertising route, because I don't want to create a listenership to sell you to advertisers. I want to generate discussion, one that I think is valuable and important in my city. And I'm asking for your help to do this, because we are all going to cook very soon and we need to be acting around that fact. Now, I see this show as something that is specific, measured, achievable, if I get the help, and timely. It is a business podcast. It is a career advice podcast. It is a civic podcast, a political podcast, and a history podcast, all in one, especially if you buy into it and tell other people about it too. You know, like how selling any shit works. Okay, that's me. Cheers, ears. Take care out there and be kind to each other, Leeds.
I do a project called Projecting Grief where I speak, just like you, speak to people for usually 2 hours, sometimes more, occasionally one, but usually the average 2 hours, and that's it. The subject matter is quite intense because it is about grief and loss, and a joyous moment too because it's about creativity. But I have to listen to them back, like you do, because I have to transcribe it and then I have to write the short story. And every time I'm just like, for fuck. Stop with your flappy mouth to me, not the person.
Yeah.
Shut up.
So when I'm trying to formulate a question, and unless I've got it to the point of actually just being a straightforward question, I can ask that question, and then I can cut all the rubbish out beforehand. But when I'm not doing that, and I'm listening back, and I'm trying to do a really clumsy segue of moving one subject into another subject or into a question, and then also I feel like I still have to kind of explain my questions to everyone at the moment of what I'm trying to do. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
It is, and it's a really skilled job. Yours is a really skilled role, and you know, it's just it's always learning, isn't it? Thinking differently, trying something out, and listening back. And I don't envy you having to do it and is in as sound, because writing is different. You can move things around a bit. Oh, yeah, you can move sound around as well, but I would think writing's a bit easier. But,
yeah, much easier to cut and paste with writing. Faster as well. I mean, you can do it with audio now. There's a editor called Descript, which will transcribe your audio. So it's done by an AI, so it's about 90% effective. And then you have to go in and sort of, you know, change the copy yourself and just do, you know, correct the main bits. But yeah, it'll give you like a text document, so you can take out bits and move it around like a word processor, but obviously it needs a lot more processing power because it's moving sound and video files sometimes to move that around. But feasibly you can do it, which when that gets really good, that'll be amazing.
I need that for Projecting Grief, because if I do a 2-hour interview, it takes me 4 hours to transcribe it. It's always double.
Yeah.
And before I've even started writing it.
There's a couple. There's Otter, which if they're Zoom sort of meetings, that does transcribing as well. That's
what's it called? Otter.
Otter.ai.
And is that
So that's just it mainly does Zoom files, like Zoom recording files, but I think it does other audio. And then have a look at Descript, which is the text editor one.
And does it transcribe, you know, is it good with like dialects, or do you have to kind of check back a bit?
Descript's not bad, but you do have to go through the document. So you'll need to read through the document, but it'll get most of the words. And it sort of gets better the more it does. So obviously at the moment it's used to sort of American voices, but as it hears other voices, it'll get better at those as well.
Thank you.
If you're listening to this, I assume you have some connection to Leeds, like living here or being from here. If you're such a person in Leeds or from Leeds and you haven't done your recording for working hours yet, then don't wait. Email me now, right now. Quick, get a pen. workinghoursPod@western-studios.com. If you fancy being my guest, put guest in the subject line of your email and add a short bio in the message. Stick in some suggestions of your availability and I'll send you a release form and a Zoom invite. If you'd like to be on working hours, I will need a 2-hour window for us to record in. I can record in your work time or during your downtime. I have been recording interviews for working hours for over a year on Zoom, but I can also record offline. You can appear on working hours anonymously, or you can promote yourself and or your company or brand. Cleaner or owner, what is your experience? How do you feel about work? What do you like and not like? What do you do, Leeds? Be a part of local history, have your voice heard, share your wisdom, give us the inside skinny. This is your show, Leeds, and it's all about what you make of yourself. Do you know what you're doing? If you do, then come and tell me all about it. Come on working hours, even if you don't know what you're doing. I certainly don't. Email me right now. Quick, get a pen. workinghoursPod@western-studios.com. If you're allowed to do that, that is. If you're not allowed to do that, then tell me why. If you and your business aren't ashamed of what you do, then let's hear all about it. What good are you doing the rest of us? Are you socially useful? Am I? Is this? Send your feedback, questions, comments, and queries right now to workinghoursPod@western-studios.com. What is happening, Leeds? Find out by following this show on Twitter @WorkingHours3 and on Instagram @WorkingHoursPodLeeds to find out when new episodes are going to be released. Or just use the hashtag #WorkingHoursPodLeeds on either of those sites to find me. I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/Western_Studios_Leeds. I'm also on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/IN/Simon-Treen. Treen is TREEN. Or you can go to my company page, which is linkedin.com/company/Western-Studios. If you want to make a podcast in Leeds, whether it's for a cause, a publicity campaign, a product promotion, or your own passion project, then get in touch with me. Western Studios for support, advice, and guidance on anything podcasts. At Western Studios, you work with a real life lawyer who is actually in Leeds, who you can actually work with on making podcast content. So don't wade through articles and videos and podcasts about how to make podcasts. Just get on with it. Western Studios can make your podcast with you or even for you. Western Studios can take on your podcast's boring, time-consuming, and painful admin, recording, editing, transcription, whatever. Tell me about it. I feel your pain. For a charge, I'll share it. Writers, what are you doing with your lives? Hopefully you're writing. Well, I know there are listeners out there who want to hear great original writing performed as audio content and made in Leeds. How do I know this? Because I'm one of them. Help me make Muck for Brass, a series of short stories, poems, performers, whatever, all published as podcast content. Is your work arty, salacious, pulpy, strange? Good. I want to make it a podcast. I get practice making the show, and you get a finished, performed, and published version of your writing. Businesses, campaigns, brands, got an inkling that you'd like a podcast but don't know where to start? Hit me up at Make My Podcast at western-studios.com and we'll start making your podcast straight away. The first hour of arranged consultation and pre-production time is free. So what do you have to lose? And what are you waiting for? Save yourself the hassle and the headache and make your podcast with a Leeds-based, in real life podcast producer. That's me, Western Studios Leeds. Once again, please let Working Hours get big and strong by joining its Patreon. Support Working Hours by becoming a champion on Patreon for £1 a month. You can inspire me and motivate me with a membership and maybe one day even be helping to cover all my costs. You can chat to me there and see me do a monthly live stream where, again, you can chat to me all about the show and, God, do I need to find someone to actively share this project with? Go to patreon.com/workinghourspod right now and sign up, please. And or go to Ko-fi, that's ko-fi.com/working hours and join me there for £1 a month and get access to the Working Hours Discord and chat to me there. I will be putting up additional material on Ko-fi once there are any members there. Please do remember to like, share, follow, and subscribe to this show. Every little bit helps. Tell your gran, tell your housekeeper, tell your gardener, tell your parole officer, tell your boss, tell Leeds, and I'll see thee next time, our kid. Working Hours is presented, edited, and recorded by Simon Treen for Western Studios Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from museopen.org.